Good afternoon นะครับ everyone. How are you today ครับ Are you good? All right. I hope that all of you are fine today นะครับ Good afternoon ครับ นวัด Justin ขวัญชนก and all of you นะครับ สุภวิทย์ as well, right? All right นะครับ so today we are going nice bell, okay? You know, somebody just like they were surprised when I just like ring the bell in what to say senior project room for the presentation. Sometimes when students present, I just like ring the bell because I like what they present, something like that. And everyone just look at me, Ajahn, you are weird. Why do you have to just like ring the bells like that? Because I mean on that term when it was in the on the campus. On that day, I went to the senior project after I finished another class that was gen ed class. As you know, for the gen ed class, some of the classes are for freshmen. So that's why ringing the bell is just like one way to help, just like bring that attention as well. Okay, right. And then today we are going to continue talking about our slides that we talk about like the way in order to get the information. Let me just like share my screen everyone. All right. On the last class I talk about one way in order to obtain the information or in order to find a fact or fact finding thing. One thing that is like one of the most frequently used technique to find the fact or to obtain the information or requirements from the users is the interviewing. And on the last class, I talk about the step that you should do for interviewing. That means we have to start from determine people interview. When we know who he or she or they is or are already, you have to establish objective for the interview first. So it's just like the way to just think about like what you want to get from them. After that you you prepare a list of questions. Apart from the list of questions, if you need to have like some documents that you know before that, okay, these people they deal with this document. For example, if you know that if you know that your interviewees are like sales representative, okay, for sure sales representative have to deal with the what to say receipt, has to deal with the sales order, something like this. So you may just like list these documents out first. But if you don't know, no problem we may just like ask the users in order to help us. The next one after we develop the question already, you have to prepare for the interview as well. I mean, for the time that you have to set up, when will it be, how long will it take? Normally it should be just like no more than 1 hour. And then you send the list of topics, or sometimes you send the list of the questions that you would like to ask your users as well. And then what else? Hang on just give me just this one. Okay. Okay, now let's continue in this one. After you just like prepare for the interview in this stage you may ask the users or the interviewees for the documents that they have in their hands as well for their current system so even though our solution that we think about is like the newly created system that they haven't got before, but I mean like sometimes those interviewees may have like some sample documents that they have in hands or they used to experience about this kind of thing before. For example, if you said that this company is just set up and then they would like to ask us to help developing the sales information system for them, the things that you may have is that you may ask the assume that the interviewee is the sales manager. You may have to ask them that, okay, do you have any samples of the sales order in your mind, because they haven't got it before, right? If they said no, I don't have it, can you please design for us? That is your jobนะครับ. Then you may have to just like search from like other sales information system that is not confidential one, that you can just like show or present the documentsนะครับ for the users. Then in case that interviewee doesn't have those samples, and if you have in your hand, you may offer to themนะครับ, but make sure that the confidential data, for example, the name of the customers, address of them, the amount of moneyนะครับ, you may have to mark themนะครับ, put some mask on it. You may just like tape it, or you may just like put some sample data insteadนะครับ. After that, when you ask for the samples alreadyนะครับ, you may say that, okay, for the sample, if it's possible, could you please send it to me before the interviewing day, or you may just like bring it along during our interviewing session as well, so that we can see how the interview, how the documents look like, so that we can discuss over the interview. And then after that, we do the conduct the interviewนะครับ. We do the conduct the interview. So you have to be, I mean, my suggestion is that if it is like in personนะครับ, that you have to go to the officeนะครับ, on site, you should just like go before the time. For example, if it is 10 o'clockนะครับ, 10 a.m. in the morning for the interviewing, you should be thereนะครับ, by 9:45, just in case that you have to pass like lots of steps in order to get into the meeting room. For example, like at this periodนะครับ, at this moment of time, I'm sure that many of the companies, if you are the outsider and if they allow you to go to interview them inside the company, they may ask you to do the ATK test first. That takes some time, right? You may have to ask them that, okay, for some of the regulations that they have got, what do you have to do first? For example, if they say that ATK test, you can do it one day before you come to our company. Or if they say that you have to just like be in front of the company, because the receptionist will give you the ATK test kit, and then you have to do it over there. So in that case, you have to add some more time in order to reach their office. Let's say at least half an hour, something like that. When you have to conduct the interview, if you would like to record the voice, one thing that you should do is that you have to ask them for permission first. Let them know that you would like to record the video, sorry, not video, you would like to record the voiceนะครับ, for the interviewingนะครับ. Let them know so that you don't need to just hide your recorder away. You can just like leave it on the tableนะครับ, something like that. And if it is conducted via Zoom, something like that, let them know that, okay, ask them, may I record the video, because I have to use that one for just like documenting it later onนะครับ. And make it to be transparent by just like tell them that, okay, when I record the video, I'll just like send that video to you as wellนะครับ. That they will feel okay, they will feel just like relaxed when you tell them aheadนะครับ, something like that. Apart from that one, when you conduct the interview, try to summarize what you discovered from the interviewing for them. So you might take notesนะครับ, on the things that you interview them. Don't just like listen to the tape recorder later onนะครับ. Don't do just like that. You should just like summarizeนะครับ, take some notes as well while you are interviewing, so that they know what you get and which part that you are missingนะครับ, something like that. And when you tell them alreadyนะครับ, you may ask for their confirmation whether the things that you try to just like summarize is correct or not. If it's not correct, I'm sure that your users or your interviewees will feel happy to just like let you knowนะครับ, and fix it for them The next one, after we have when we conduct the interview already, you have to document it นะครับ that means when you go back to the office นะครับ you have to just like do the documenting of the interview นะครับ in details for the things that you gather นะครับ because the point that you just like tell your interviewee during the meeting session, it might be just like too short นะครับ then this one you just like clarify for what you discovered นะครับ and also you have to just like enter the information นะครับ for the event that you went for interviewing as well, what date, what time, what location, and then you just like send a memo or what to say email in order to just like thanks นะครับ or express your appreciation for that interviewing session for the time that they give it to you. After that นะครับ we evaluate the interview นะครับ in order to just like find any possible biases, because sometimes they have some insight that from the text that you write down you may not know, but from just like your face-to-face communication interviewing นะครับ the art of interviewing is that when you just like talk to someone, you look at their faces and their gestures, and then you may know some insight. For example นะครับ I can tell you that some of you in this room who you went to interview with me before when you come to MUIC, I remember that at the time it was Zoom or it's not Zoom, it is Google Meet, something like that. Okay, I look from your face and then I saw from your eyes, then I know that how you feel with just like computer science. When I ask you that why do you choose computer science program at MUIC, I can see that okay, some of you, your answer comes from your eyes, not just what the words that you tell. This is just like the way that we use interview to help. But if I said that I want to know just like the reasons why you want to come to MUIC by just like ask you to write, then I don't see how you feel. Sometimes somebody say that okay, I'll express my feeling through my words, but I mean like if I look at your eyes I can see more. So that's why when you evaluate the interview you see some possible biases that might be happen นะครับ something like that. Somebody really like the previous system or the legacy system that they have been using. Somebody said that they suffered from the old system. Saran said like anime, sounds like anime. Yeah, something like that นะครับ okay, yeah, and then you might see that some interviews they might be unsuccessful นะครับ it is possible. No matter how well you prepare for interview, some are not successful because sometimes if your interviewees are so busy with other works, they were interrupted many times while you were conducting the interviewing. That might be the unsuccessful interviews ครับ and it might be possible นะครับ some of the experienced interviewer might try to find the solution นะครับ for example, they may say that okay, they would like to ask for like a bit more like half an hour, so they just like see from the face of the interviewee and they know immediately that can they extend the time or can they just like come back to ask นะครับ or conduct the interview the next round instead. For example นะครับ if the interviewees have been interrupting by just like calling by their secretary, someone knocked the door to ask them to sign the document, something like that, I'm sure that some of the interviewees they feel unhappy about that, and they will feel sorry about like the time that you cannot just like get information from them much. They will offer you that excuse me, I'm so sorry นะครับ today I mean I have like so many works, is it possible for you to just like have the interviewing again, or can we just like have the Zoom communication after this? They offer like this for you if they're kind enough. So that is your turn. You can just like um, reappoint them for the interviewing if possible นะครับ but we try to avoid นะครับ if you interview already try to avoid to re-interview them because it's the same story. You ask the same thing that you asked before, something like that. So that's why นะครับ try to just like finish everything in one hit นะครับ if you can do that. Okay, so after we finish for the interviewing already นะครับ we also have like other fact-finding techniques as well นะครับ apart from interviewing some of the fact-finding we may ask to get the document from the users นะครับ we get the document from the users for the current system that they are having นะครับ then you just like check from the documents that they have got and see what is the flaws, what is the disadvantage, what is the improvement that you should have for that document. Sometimes it might not be just their documents for just like receipt, invoice, sales order, but it might be the document that state for the flow or the system document of the previous system is possible as well. For example, the legacy system, they may have the diagram นะครับ to tell all of the logic inside their system. Then you may ask for that one นะครับ but some kind of system they throw away already because they have been using the system for like couple of years already. They don't have that document anymore นะครับ but if they have, you may ask them for that นะครับ for the document review. After that apart from document review, you may do the observation as well. Observation here means that you go to observe their work นะครับ how do they work นะครับ with the current system or the legacy system. The observation here means that you try to go and see the system in action นะครับ it gives you additional perspective and better understanding of the system procedures for example, in this one, if we go to the warehouse of FedEx, you can see that who works in this warehouse. You might see that, okay, it might be the warehouse staff that just like might be the clerk, the warehouse clerk. He just like record or just like print out all of the slips. While this one the girl, she is the let's say delivery person. She might be the truck driver นะครับ she has to get the box from the conveying belt to the truck นะครับ before she just like bring go to get the document นะครับ the delivery document from the clerk and go to the truck and drive this truck to deliver the product. Then you can notice from this one นะครับ but anyway, you cannot just say that, okay, I would like to spend one day in observation, in observing the work. You may not know who works in what position, in which location. The let's say the delivery truck, let's say if it is the let's say Monday, they may say that, okay, normally Monday they don't have the delivery, something like that. If you go to this warehouse, you see nothing. Or we say that, okay, the delivery, they just do it on half day only from 8 o'clock to 12. After 12, these people will go to another office to do, like, for example, the clerk will not just like print the slip anymore. They have like something to clear out in their office, not in this warehouse location. Then you get nothing if you go there. So that's why you have to plan your observation in advance. You may have some key users or some users that you might interview them before นะครับ I can say that observation might be the additional fact finding that you get or that you use after you conduct the interviewing already. You may ask your interviewee that, okay, I would like to have the observation on the current system. Can you tell me in which floor of your office that I can go? Who can I meet นะครับ so you may have to ask the interviewee to help arrange นะครับ the observation day for you. For example, they say that, okay, can you go to the warehouse on Tuesday นะครับ from 8 o'clock. We do the delivery process นะครับ every weekdays from 8 to 12, but it must be not be Monday, because Monday we have to do some other task in another office instead. So they may say that, okay, please meet Mr. Alex. He is the clerk. He can introduce you that, okay, who will be related to this delivery process. Okay, then you know in this one. Okay, and then when you plan for the observation already, another kind of the fact finding that somebody may have to use if there are lots of users, if there are lots of users, is that we may use the questionnaires and surveys instead. We may use questionnaire and surveys instead, because sometimes we say that, okay, we have so many users, and the users might not be the users who are in our office, who are in the office. They might be the users of the system who are customers of our customer. Let's say, for example, if someone would like to develop a new academic information system like Sky Plus, you can see that if we would like to know whether students who are really the users of the system, one group of users of the system are happy or not, or in using the Sky Plus. So you can see that instead of interviewing each student, you may say that, okay, on the Sky Plus, if the student log in into Sky Plus, it pops up the evaluation, or it pops up the questionnaire for you first, something like that. This one, if we can do like that, you can survey, or you can just let the student to answer the question. Maybe like out of 3,000 students, you may have 500, 600 students who help you, who cooperatively help you in order to answer the questionnaire, something like that. So for the questionnaire and surveys here, I said that, okay, when designing a questionnaire, the most important rule of all is to make sure that your questions collect the right data in a form that you can use to further your fact finding. For the questionnaire, you have to know that the questions that people usually answer is multiple choice. If they have to fill up like a lot of text, sometimes they don't answer, they don't reply anything. But if it is just like multiple choice, they just click and choose just that. Or sometimes instead of letting the users to answer lots of like text, like a paragraph, something like that, you may have a drop down list to list many possible or many frequently used answers, so that users or the respondent to the questionnaire can just like easily answer to you. But anyway, if they use, if you use all multiple choice, sometimes you don't get what you want. The things that you may use is that you want to let the users to express their ideas. So the way in order to design the questionnaire, when you have, let's say, multiple choice question, let's say for 5 or 6 questions, then you may have like one short essay question in between, something like that. It is possible too. And apart from that one, if you have the multiple choice question, you should have some question that probe whether the previous question is correct or not, or you need to have some question to probe that whether the whether the respondents, they randomly answer or not. Like what? If you say that, okay, you have to let the users, or you would like the respondent to choose their genders. Okay, to choose their genders. So if you have just 2 choices, that is the classic ones. Right now you may just like use other questions instead. For example, you have like the choice male or female. You choose choice male or female. So sometimes some people answer the first choice of every question, choice A, so that they can just like answer quickly and go to the next page to finish up the questionnaire. So if we say that choice A is male, you may have a next question. you may say that, okay, please enter your salutation. You have Mr. Miss. You start with Miss first. If they answer male and yet they choose Miss, you know immediately that they just randomly answer it. Right? So this is the way that we normally use to validate the data that we receive. Or sometimes you may see that some questionnaires, it looks duplicate. For example, let me ask, who? Now whatครับ? Which year you were born? Now what? Are you here?
Yes, Ajahn. Hello.
Oh, okay. You answered to me already. Sorry. How old are you now? 19. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I have the question in the questionnaire. So the first one, what is your age? A, 18, B, 19, C, 20, D, 21. Okay, that if I just like set up the questionnaire to ask the age like this. In the next question, which year you were born? 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. If you say that you are 19, but you say that you were born on 2000, or if you say that you are sorry, you are 19, but you say that you were born on 1999, that means you just randomly answer the question. This is just one way to validate. There are lots of things that you can use in order to validate the questionnaire. Then it's the art as well in order to design the questionnaire, not to make your respondents to feel bored while you just like keep your information accurate. Then you have to think about that one as well. Okay, so right now you can see that for the questionnaire we just like we rarely use the paper based anymore. If it is like in office for the questionnaire you can just like distribute the Google form, something like that, to let the respondents to answer or you may just like use the service like Survey Monkeys in order to just prepare the questionnaire and surveys to the people in public, something like that. When we have this one already, apart from questionnaires and survey, we may use sampling techniques to help. In here, I'm sure that all of you study for stat subject already, right? Or are going to study for the stat subject. So we learn for the sampling techniques. We have systematic sampling, stratified sampling, random sampling. Like for systematic sampling in here, for the sampling techniques, we may use it in conjunction with the questionnaire as well. For example, for the questionnaire respondents, we have 10,000 respondents from the questionnaire. We may say that, okay, we will collect every odd number for the questionnaire number. We'll use that one, okay? While the even numbers for the questionnaire we'll just like use it to just like find some more information, something like that. We just like do the systematic sampling for that one, or stratify sampling. You group the questionnaire. For example, you sort the questionnaire by department, and we say that the department we will use the department like accounting department for every office in the southern area, something like that. That is stratified sampling. You just group for the samples that you would like to use the information. Random sampling, then you may have like some random techniques in order to random the questionnaire that you have to use for this purpose, something like that. The main objective for the sampling is that you would like to ensure that it represents overall population accurately. You just like spread out like the way that you just choose the people. Or for example, sometimes if I want to know that whether the students are happy with the Sky Plus system or not, instead of just asking student in year 3, let's say, we may say that, okay, I will just like want to random student from every year นะครับ year 1 year 2 year 3 year 4 maybe just like I want 10 representative นะครับ from each year something like that so I random from the student ID and when I get that student ID already I may send the email to that student to just let him or her to answer the questionnaire for me something like that นะครับ these are just like the sampling that we use in case that you have so many people and then we cannot conduct the interview to everyone นะครับ we may just have to use a sampling to help or in order to use the sampling we may do the sampling on some documents as well for example you want to check นะครับ the correctness of the receipts นะครับ for the current system because your users complain that okay for the old system sometimes the receipt calculate the tax wrongly but I mean like if they give one example to you you see that oh but the tax is 7% from the sales amount it is not wrong anyway but if the users insist that okay they usually find it but if you ask them they cannot tell you which receipt number that found the problem you may have to use the random นะครับ to see that okay if you say that you random 5 receipts from every month to see นะครับ because at least if you just like use or if you random 5 receipts every month for a year and if the user said that okay it always costs the wrong data for the tax calculation you should be able to see at least one of it something like that นะครับ apart from the sampling we may do the research for the research here นะครับ we can include the internet IT magazines book that obtain background information technical material and news about research trends and development or you may do the site visit as well to conduct the research in order to find a fact or for example if นะครับ you would like to know that okay for the company like your customers that they are asking you to just like do or developing this kind of system normally the companies like this in the same industry what software that they use then this is the research you may have to just like do that one or for example if we say that we would like to know whether our Sky Plus is okay or not นะครับ how are other universities do you may just like go to site visit to other universities as well for example นะครับ if you remember I told you at the very first class that before Sky system we had a system called Oasis right that was the academic information system for students as well the point that I would like to tell you is that in the past we didn't have any idea how to have the information system for the academic by ourselves because before that one before Oasis period we had to use the academic information system that we adopted from MU Computer Center at that time นะครับ when we would like to step out and have our own software we have to know that okay how are like other universities do when we went to see in the market we found that okay the universities for example at Chulalongkorn University they use mainframe computer and they develop their in-house นะครับ also it's centralized when we went to talk to Thammasat University same as Jula they use mainframe computer and they were centralized at that time if I'm not wrong I can remember that at that time we went to have the site visit at Bangkok University and Rangsit University to see how do they gonna just like have the registration for their students at that time นะครับ they are pleased to just like show us นะครับ because I mean in term of academic we help each other and then they show us like for this kind of thing that they have got นะครับ by the way we don't copy them for sure because it's like different kind of just like management then we just like contact many of the software houses at that time to just like propose their ideas. How do we gonna develop our system? By just like giving them for some information, basic information that we have got. They conducted the interview like that for the fact finding, and after that they just like come up with the homework that they do for us to show us, just like the showcase that okay, how do they gonna have like the system in order to manage the academic information system for MUIC, something like that. They did the research as well. In this one, when we talk about the interviews versus questionnaire, what are different and when are we going to use questionnaire or interview? We find that interview is more familiar and personal because normally you don't have group interview. If you just like have to do the interviewing for this information system requirement gathering, you have to do one-on-one normally. Interview is more familiar. Also, it's personal because we conduct. Normally, you don't sit with the users on the next to their desk. We don't do like that. If you want to have the interview, you need to have a proper place like meeting room. Questionnaire, it gives many people the opportunity to provide input and suggestion because you cannot do everything. You cannot interview everyone. Then you have like selected people only for interviewing. That's why if you want to have like more input and more suggestion, questionnaire might be better choice. And also for the brainstorming, if we just like conduct the interviewing help us for brainstorming with the users, because when we just like summarize something for what users response to us or the interviewee response to us, if we summarize not correct one, they will help you in order to fix the problem, and then we can start brainstorming. Sometimes if we say that okay, two of the system analysts go to interview the user, same interviewees at the same time, we can help each other for conducting the brainstorming as well. Or you may just like appoint them for having a further brainstorming after interview session as well. You may have like the structured brainstorming that you just like set everything in order already. Or unstructured brainstorming means that you do the brainstorming on whatever problems that happen, then you just like think about like what to brainstorm. But the structured brainstorm, that means you prepare everything ahead that you want to brainstorm with the users about this, about the question that you are asking, question number 5 here. For example, if we say that, okay, for question number 5, it is the authorization process or approval process. We say that the current system has a bottleneck because when everyone prepared the documents already, we have to wait for the approver to approve. And sometimes if the approver is absent, you have to wait for another day or two, something like that. So in this question, you may have the brainstorming. You might just like take some notes in the interviewing script to tell your users that, okay, you will do the brainstorming in the approval process, something like that. And then you just conduct the brainstorming in what sub topic that you want to brainstorm. That is the structured brainstorming that you prepare ahead. But while the unstructured brainstorming means that when you discuss or interview the users and there's something happen, like some difficulties of the current system that your users or your interviewee raise up, then you can just like start the brainstorming about that one. Because sometimes you may want to ask them that, okay, do you think what should be done in order to solve this approval process time to be minimized, something like that. They may just like give you some ideas. That one you can collect the information. After that, when we talk about the documentation, for the documentation in here, it means that you have the documentation after you find the fact from the previous process. This is not the documentation that you gather from users like sales slip or receipt. No, it's different documentation. Documentation here means that preparing the documents from what you gather from fact finding. This one, because there's a need for recording the facts นะครับ once you finish the fact finding process นะครับ whatever you use whatever way you use interviewing observation questionnaire record information as soon as you obtain it otherwise you forget นะครับ use the simplest recording method for example the easiest or the simplest recording method is that you write it down first you jot down the keyword something like that or somebody who are familiar with the mind map use the mind map somebody who are familiar with using the flow chart use the flow chart DFD use DFD UML use UML if your company has different standard for example one team use UML another team use DFD then while you are preparing for fact-finding process think first which tool that are going to use for recording your findings นะครับ because otherwise if you prepare DFD while other system analysts when they interview the interviewees they use UML then it means that when you compile all these documents together you see many kind of diagrams in the same project นะครับ in the same fact-finding process ครับ so when you record the finding you have to record them in such a way that other people can understand to what you are recording นะครับ so that's why in this class we have to learn for the standard tools that we have to use so that when you record this kind of thing นะครับ other people can understand it as well for example at least people in I mean your classmates can understand what notation you are using นะครับ and people in the computer science field นะครับ other people will know what are you doing as well นะครับ and organize your documentation so related material is located easily sometimes you may have shared drive sometimes you may have to use like right now you can see that somebody just used Git to help นะครับ that is just like to organize your documentation as well the next thing is that when we have to use software tools นะครับ one kind of software tool that is like popularly used is the case tool นะครับ case tool actually is the abbreviation term it stands for computer aided software engineering tools นะครับ this kind of tool can help just like preparing lots of diagrams นะครับ to also just like some of the case tool has a features in order to generate นะครับ from your diagram it can be generated as a code sometimes some of the diagrams you can also generate it as the UI and then you can also generate the code so that you can just like attach to your program logic and then you can use it นะครับ right and for the productivity software that we may use for documentation are word processing like Microsoft Word Google Doc Pages นะครับ spreadsheet like Excel numbers or Google Sheets นะครับ database management software that you may use in order to gather the information นะครับ this is not for development process นะครับ this is for documentation in the information gathering process you may use like let's say access to help something like that so that you can gather and you can just like access those kind of document faster นะครับ presentation graphic like PowerPoint like keynotes like Google Slides นะครับ something like that and some other collaborative software programs collaborative software programs are like Google Calendar นะครับ something like that or Outlook Calendar so that you can appoint or you can just like set up your calendar and then let your users to see it or your team to see it as well or you may just like do some histogram chart something like that นะครับ so for the software tools นะครับ for the software tool we may use graphic modeling software นะครับ personal information managers wireless communication devices นะครับ for just like helping you นะครับ in order to just like do some kind of like communication with other people นะครับ so in this one นะครับ the next one that I talk about is the preview of logical modeling logical modeling here นะครับ is the way that you try to gather and summarize the information that you gather นะครับ in whatever manners you may use like you may use what to say mind map นะครับ in order to just like map all of the keywords that you get that is logical modeling because you actually when you use just like the mind map นะครับ other people understand but mind map cannot be used for developing the code นะครับ this one is what we call logical modeling it is the upper level นะครับ or higher level of the modeling นะครับ so that what to say technical people นะครับ and the functional people like your users นะครับ understand each other นะครับ while the other kind of modeling is called physical modeling or physical model we talk about in another chapter นะครับ so we say that at the conclusion of requirement modeling system developers should have a clear understanding of business processes and system requirements. What does it mean by clear understanding of business process? It means that if you have to relay you have to relay this information or this requirement to developer. The developer may have some question to ask you back. You must be able to answer that question นะครับ Don't just like say that when the developer asks system analyst you said oh sorry I don't know I go back to ask the user once again so it means that you become just a middle person only it wastes the time นะครับ so that's why you need to have clear understanding of business process and system requirement first นะครับ so that you can tell and then you can relay these requirements to the developers first but I mean like for details for example if you say that okay the developer is asking for the what to say the largest amount of money that should be able to written on receipt you may say that actually it's very detailed like this I don't know then you may have to ask the users again or from your experience you have to help them as well for example if you know that okay when you see all of the products that they sell at most each order might be just at most 10 million baht so that means you must have like at most 8 digits only with 2 decimal points then you just like tell the developer like that นะครับ for the system requirements something like that after you just like clear cut you have the clear cut of the understanding of business process already the next step is to construct a logical model of the system นะครับ to construct logical model of the system that means you have to draw the diagram that can be passed to the developer and then they can just like develop the program as the from the logical model that you prepare as well นะครับ because I mean like actually for the logical model here when you have it already we will make the logical model to become physical model by adding the properties of like variables of the tables นะครับ of the database of the files that will be in the system นะครับ so we will talk about the logical model that we have to construct IT professionals have differing views about system development methodology and no universally accepted approach exists so that's why I tell you that okay in one company you may have some teams who are keen on using data flow diagrams some teams are keen on using UML that is okay ครับ but some companies they develop their own standard suppose they say that I want to use XDFD or X data flow diagram that is the standard of your company that you set your own that means everyone has to be trained for the XDFD standard first so that when they go to prepare their what to say logical model everyone will use XDFD นะครับ with as the same standard that means you may have to just like throw away your existing knowledge of DFD and UML away and then use like the standard of your company นะครับ it depends นะครับ on the company right and I cannot tell you that it's wrong นะครับ because actually it depends on the situation depends on the company that has been using นะครับ for the standard นะครับ approach that they use okay so if they don't have any standard approach the things that you learn นะครับ like data flow diagrams in this course UML in object oriented course you can use any of it นะครับ no problem lastly นะครับ I talk about the module summary นะครับ of the summary of this module or this chapter นะครับ in this module we talk about system analysis phase นะครับ it includes 3 activities that we นะครับ have to do that we must do the first one is requirement modeling นะครับ data and process modeling and the consideration of development strategies นะครับ these are the system analysis phase นะครับ that we are going to study after this นะครับ now we just like start the first part that is gathering the requirement of fact finding first the main objective is to understand the proposed project ensure that it will support business requirements and build a solid foundation for the system design phase นะครับ because if you don't do the system analysis properly นะครับ system design will fail นะครับ will be fail okay right this is all for this module นะครับ up to this point do you have any questions ครับ anyone okay if you don't have any questions นะครับ before I move on to the next module I would like you to see your homework นะครับ that I would like you and your team to do that นะครับ let me just share my screen to you just won't be long นะครับ okay so this is our team discussion นะครับ our team discussion so this one นะครับ it is the case study of module number 3 นะครับ so every team please do the same thing as usual นะครับ discuss with your teammates นะครับ oh I better write this one too so that you not forget นะครับ Oops. Okay, so this is what I want you to do ครับ firstly you read the case นะครับ give a case summary and then answer case questions นะครับ then you just submit your answer in PDF file นะครับ one team just one submission is enough นะครับ as usual นะครับ in this case study นะครับ in this module we have altogether 4 different cases นะครับ 4 different cases let's have a look we have North Hills College, Deep River College, นะครับ Fast Pack Overnight Package System and Cyber Stuff นะครับ 4 different cases. So I just like divide you into different case studies already นะครับ Pawara นะครับ and Napong's team นะครับดู case 3-1 North Hill College นะครับFreddieจิรพัฒน์ and ธเนศพล team นะครับดู case 2 นะครับ Deep River College ชยพล and ขวัญชนกนะครับ please do and your team นะครับ please do case study 3-3 Fast Pack Overnight Package System and for 3-4 นะครับ cyber staff case Robert Nawat and Corentin please do this case นะครับ okay and so this case นะครับ is due on next class before is due on next Monday before the class start นะครับ so each team please submit this one to me นะครับ and then because there are many cases then I randomly call นะครับ some teams นะครับ from each case to present your case study นะครับ that you discovered okay right okay for this team discussion do you have any questions ครับ anyone all right if you don't have any questions นะครับ for this case study นะครับ we move on to module number 4 นะครับ to module number 4 for module number 4 นะครับ it is data and process modeling นะครับ data and process modeling let me just open up my slide นะครับ so that we can start talking about this module just won't be long okay so in this module นะครับ it is process data and process modeling นะครับ this module you learn นะครับ how to describe data and process modeling concepts and tools including data flow diagram นะครับ data dictionary and process description นะครับ these are 3 main tools that you have to know and you have to use นะครับ you learn นะครับ the symbols that use in data flow diagrams and explain the rules for their use. You learn how to draw data flow diagrams in a sequence from general to specific. Also, you learn how to level and balance a set of data flow diagrams. After that นะครับ you'll be able to describe how a data dictionary is used and what it contains. Then we learn about the process description tools, including structured English, decision tables, and decision trees. Lastly, you learn about the relationship between logical and physical model. If you remember, we talked about logical model in the previous module before, right? So in this module, we are going to talk about the physical models as well. And also because in this module, the data flow diagrams or DFD is important for all of you in the future, especially for anyone who has to work as a system analyst or consultant. Whenever you have to prepare the specification of the software to your customer, the way in order to convey the information from your customers or users to the development team, data flow diagrams is one of the tools that we normally use. Apart from that one, in the future, if you would like to work as the developers, you must be able to read and understand data flow diagrams that system analyst or consultant pass it to you so that you can develop your software according to the requirements that have been written on the data flow diagram. So that's why it is a must นะครับ so I will just like arrange the workshop for you นะครับ the workshop for all of you so that we can just like have the time to just focus only on drawing the data flow diagrams from a specific case นะครับ I cannot do it during the class time because we have like lots of things to know นะครับ so I'll just like check the time for you and then I'll just let you know about the time that we should have for the workshop of data flow diagrams นะครับ also the data flow diagram will also be in our exam as well because it's the content of this module นะครับ that's why you have to know in details okay so now let's talk about the module 4 นะครับ data and process modeling นะครับ in the previous chapters sorry it not previous chapter from this chapter and next chapter นะครับ we will be able to develop logical model นะครับ of the proposed system นะครับ and document the system requirements that means right now we assume that we gather all the information from your users already นะครับ now from those information or from those requirements we are going to prepare logical model นะครับ of the proposed system so นะครับ when we talk about the terms logical model it shows what the system must do นะครับ what the system must do นะครับ while the physical model describe how system will be constructed นะครับ what and how นะครับ is different for this module we talk about what first นะครับ the things that you have to know นะครับ when we talk about the data and process modeling tools นะครับ system analysts or consultants normally use many graphical techniques to describe an information system นะครับ we may draw a diagram or different diagrams นะครับ depends on you depends on your company it depends on your team นะครับ a data flow diagrams is a kind of diagram that we normally use นะครับ data flow diagrams or DFD uses various symbols to show how the system transform input data into useful information นะครับ so you may learn from other subjects นะครับ for example in 101 already that you have like input นะครับ sorry you have input นะครับ you process it and finally you get the output นะครับ data flow diagrams deal with this thing from input that is the data to the process that is some parts of the logic and understanding for what the system do นะครับ to be the output information that the customer or users want to have นะครับ in here so when you have to use data flow diagrams นะครับ data flow diagram is the graphical tools นะครับ that we use to help นะครับ in order to model นะครับ the requirements of users data flow diagrams นะครับ or DFD นะครับ shows how data move through an information system นะครับ but does not show program logic or processing step inside นะครับ they just told you that okay what are related functions or what are related module that we have in the system นะครับ a set of data flow diagrams provides a logical model that shows what the system does not how it does นะครับ so that means it doesn't show the logic of the program inside you don't have the pseudocode inside that data flow diagrams นะครับ so when we talk about data flow diagrams let me introduce to you for the standard that we have first นะครับ okay okay just won't be long นะครับ okay let's see when we talk about data flow diagrams these are the standard symbol that we use นะครับ we have just around 4 or 5 different symbols only one thing that you have to be careful นะครับ don't mix them up if you want to use left hand side you use left hand side if you want to use right hand side you use right hand side นะครับ what are they let me explain to you first for the data flow diagrams นะครับ we have we have the symbol for process for data flow for data store and external entity นะครับ okay I'll talk about the meaning of each word next on ครับ for the standard DFD symbol we have two different scheme นะครับ we have two different scheme you pick one of this นะครับ Gain and Sarson นะครับ or Jordan นะครับ these are the name of the computer scientists who developed this standard of DFD นะครับ Gain and Sarson or Jordan if you use Gain and Sarson นะครับ the process that you use นะครับ that you have you use rounded corner rectangle นะครับ you have to use rounded corner rectangle you have a small vertical นะครับ a small horizontal line to separate this box นะครับ separate this rectangle into two parts the top part is smaller than the lower one นะครับ and inside นะครับ and inside the lower part of the box นะครับ write down the process name the top part of the box write down the number for example we have number 1 like this นะครับ this is process number while you're done นะครับ you're done standard use circle to represent a process they write down นะครับ the process name inside this circle and many times you see that there is a small horizontal line to separate the circle into two parts similar to Gain and Sarson on the top part of the circle you have process number the lower part you have the process name นะครับ these are like the same process but you write them by using different standard นะครับ same process number 1 something like that okay next data flow for Gain and Sarson and Jordan they use the same symbol นะครับ an arrow นะครับ an arrow with the label นะครับ the label means that data นะครับ the data that is flowing from one point to another point next นะครับ next is data store in terms of Gain and Sarson use นะครับ one open-ended rectangle with a small vertical line นะครับ inside this rectangle we write down the data store name in the small part of the rectangle นะครับ we put the number for example it might be DS1 นะครับ putting inside this small part or small box ครับ in here while the Jordan use two open-ended rectangle นะครับ or a parallel line like this to represent data store the way that they may do in order to write down the data store similar to the Gain and Sarson they write the name of the data store and also the ID of data store like DS1 like this without the vertical line นะครับ lastly external entity Gain and Sarson use shaded square and write down the name of external entity inside นะครับ while Jordan use just a 2D square นะครับ and write down the name of the external entity inside นะครับ so that means if you want to write down a system model นะครับ if you use Gain and Sarson to represent everything นะครับ but if you say that okay you want to write down a system model นะครับ process model with Jordan. You use Jordan for every single symbol that they have got. You see the example next on. Now I just introduce you for the standard symbols that we use in each scheme first. Now let's talk about the first meaning, the meaning of the first symbol, that is process. When we talk about process, what does the process mean? Process means when you receive input data and produces output that has a different content, different form, or both of them, you pass it into a process. You pass it into a process. Okay. For example, let me give you an example. Sorry. If I have this one. Suppose I said that, okay, a student sent registration form into a process. This process, I call this process as approval process. Okay. So what will happen next? The things that come out from the approval process, even though it is a registration form as well, but normally I have to write down an adjective to make the state of this registration form to be different. For example, I say that I will name this data that come out from the process as approved registration form. You can see that actually they are the same paper. Suppose I said that this is the old system they are the same paper that is registration form that you send for approval. When this paper comes out from the process, you may have a signature of someone who approved this. So you can see that it's different from the original registration that come in already because you have a signature. That's why we call this coming out of the data as approved registration form in here. So you can see that it receives input data and produce output that has different content from form or both. You can see that this one you get the same form, but the content is different because you have the signature of someone in here as well. That's why we have the word approved as the adjective to explain this registration form for its change. Next, the process contains business logic, also called business rules. In this process, approval process inside, it has the business rules or business logic. For example, if you have the explanation for this process, we said that, okay, the registration form that comes in from a student will be sent to the advisor, and the advisor will consider whether the students are allowed to take these courses or not. If okay, he will sign to approve. Otherwise, he will cross some of the courses that he think it is not okay for that student to take, and then sign his name as the approval. That might be called as a business logic or business rules. So some of you say that, hey, but it's not related to business, it is academic thing. By the way, we call it as business logic. That is the general terms for any activities or any logic that you do in related to the business, in related to the information system, we call it as business logic. After that, when we have this one already, the next thing that you have to know, apart from the data flow diagram, apart from process symbol, you can see that in this example, I have an arrow point to a process, point to a circle like this. An arrow like this, we call it as data flow. If you remember, data flow is here, the arrow like this. Okay, now let's talk about the data flow. The data flow represents one or more data items. Represent one or more data items. It might be a field, it might be a variable, it might be a document. For example, the one that I'm showing you that I draw on the previous page. It is just like a document. That is the data. Or I mean more data items, not just like one piece of item sent to the approval process in here. We said that the symbol for a data flow is aligned with a single or double arrowhead. In this example, you can see that I draw the single arrowhead. It means that in here, it's going to the process only, but it's not coming out in the same way, but it goes out in another way to connect to other points in here. So by the way, I forgot the last line for process symbol. It said that, okay, refer to as black box. For the approval process here, when you see the diagram, you don't know what is the approval process inside. That's why we call it as a black box. If you want to know what's inside, you have to read in another document. That is process description document that will be used to describe the logic of the process. Okay, now we are talking about a data flow diagram. So that's why you can see that there's no explanation for this process in detail. It just showed with a circle only. Or if you use Gain and Sarsen, it shows with just like rounded corner rectangles. All right, so when we have this already, the next thing that you have to know is that when we have data flow symbol like this already, let's see the example of data flow when it's connecting to other components in your data flow diagrams. These examples are the correct way in order to connect data flow to other things. The first one, you can see that we have services performed send into create invoice process. Send it into the create invoice process, and the output from invoice process is invoice is coming out. So that means service performed has been transformed into invoice by passing create invoice process. The next one input submitted work has been sent to grade student work process, and in the grade student work process is separated into two output. One is graded work the other one is student grade. Okay, the graded work might be returned to the students. The student grade might be used in order to calculate the total score of the students. They are separated into like two other parts. That's why we separate them into two different data flows like this. The next thing is hours work data flow and pay rate data flow. You can see that this process calculate gross pay has two input. That means we want to use hours work and pay rate to calculate gross pay, and the output of this process is gross pay. You have two input and one output. Lastly, you have interconnecting processes. For example, the order data flow comes into verify order process. Verify order process will have the output will generate the output that is accepted order. The accepted order will become the input of assemble order process, and the assemble order process will process the output to be inventory change. So you can see that these are just like the data flow from one process as the input. to be the output of this process and become the input of another process to generate the output นะครับ These are just like the way in order to draw the data flow together with the process นะครับ in the data flow diagrams. When we have this already นะครับ before I move on to the next symbol นะครับ up to this point do you have any questions about this example ครับ I would like to tell you that นะครับ for this data flow diagrams นะครับ this is just a part of it only นะครับ I just cut off some part of it to show you on this one but in the real data flow diagrams everything should be like connected to each other. For example, in one system you may have 10 different processes, you may have like 30 data flows นะครับ something like that. Okay, so if you don't have any questions let me move on to another slide นะครับ another slide I'm going to talk about the next นะครับ the next what to say symbol that you have to use. That is what we call data store. Data store นะครับ represents the data that system store. For example, it might be a file cabinet, a filing cabinet. It might be a folder. It might be a database นะครับ It can be a text file, something like that. But I mean like the type of the file like database or text file, you don't need to clarify in this step นะครับ because this is a logical model only. We talk about the functionality of that data store more than just like the format that we keep it นะครับ The data store symbol, when we represent the data that the system store นะครับ the physical characteristics of a data store are unimportant in this stage because you are concerned with a logical model only นะครับ Okay, so now let's see นะครับ let's see for the example you can see that okay we see one column at a time นะครับ the leftmost one, for the leftmost one, okay, we have a process that is called post payment นะครับ post payment will have the output that is customer payment นะครับ this customer payment will be kept in the daily payment data store. And apart from that one นะครับ the data the daily payments นะครับ is also sent as the input for prepare deposits นะครับ so that means one input to daily payment นะครับ data store and also the daily payment has one output data flow. Now let's move on to the next column นะครับ we talk about account receivable data store. Account receivable data store here นะครับ gets the input นะครับ that is invoice นะครับ that is created from create invoice process. Create invoice process will generate the output that is called an invoice that becomes the input of account receivable data store นะครับ Meanwhile account receivable data store นะครับ has the output in order to send as an invoice detail to be the input of post payment. While post payments นะครับ when we process already we have the output that is payment detail. Payment details will become the input for account receivable as well. So that means the account receivable data store keeps the data of invoice and payment detail นะครับ and payment detail while it's generate the invoice detail to send to another process นะครับ so in this one we have two input one output for this data store. Lastly นะครับ lastly this one we are talking about patients นะครับ data store. Patient data store gets the input นะครับ that is admission form that come from admit patient. Admit patient process generate the output that is admission form that becomes the input for patients data store นะครับ While this data store send its output นะครับ to be the input of diagnosed patient process. diagnose patient process need to use the symptom นะครับ that is one of the data flow sent from patients data store while another process called treat patient when you finish treating the patient already นะครับ the information นะครับ that is treatment data flow is sent to be kept in patient's data store นะครับ this is the way that we just use data store in order to send and receive its data flow to other components นะครับ when we have to draw the data flow diagrams it has a rules as well นะครับ so in order to draw the data flow diagrams นะครับ the rules are here นะครับ when we talk about นะครับ the entity okay before we talk about entity symbol นะครับ entity symbol is the name of the entity sorry we said that I'm sorry นะครับ entity symbol normally we use entity to represent a person a department นะครับ or other system นะครับ for example if we say that we are talking about ATM system นะครับ and we talk about the banking management system so you can see that ATM is one of just like the small system of the bank but when you have to withdraw the money นะครับ or deposit the money into the cash depositing machine or ATM the information will be sent to the banking management system to keep the data so you have an entity symbol and call it as ATM system something like that or it might be a name of a position of a person for example student advisee advisor secretary delivery person or entity might means the department like for example science division for example delivery department accounting department or it might be manager something like that but normally what entity shouldn't be used what is the name of the entity that you shouldn't use name of a person ครับ shouldn't be there for example Poromin you shouldn't use the name Poromin as like the entity symbol because you have to specify the role of Poromin in this system for example you can see that if you use the term Poromin as one of the entity in Sky Plus system the developer will be confused because Poromin work as an advisor and also Poromin work as instructor as well advisor and instructors have different roles in order to interact with the Sky Plus system that's why you better write down นะครับ the person as his role or his position instead of the name ครับ you will see in the example นะครับ now นะครับ the next thing when we write down นะครับ or when we draw the external entity you write down the name of the entity inside the box นะครับ inside the box normally what is the rule of entity entity normally it is the terminator นะครับ it is a terminator means that it is the start or the stop point of the system นะครับ source or sink what does it mean source means that it's the point นะครับ that send input into the system for example student initiate the course registration they send the course registration request to the system that is what we call source sink is the place that receive นะครับ the output from the system for example if we are talking about a bank receive the money from the students นะครับ so the bank is a sink นะครับ by the way we use the same symbol นะครับ is the square with the shade or just like the plane 2D square นะครับ to represent the entity symbol now let's see the rule นะครับ the correct example of data flow นะครับ when we have to draw a data flow diagrams นะครับ a process can connect to a process นะครับ this is correct one a process can send and receive the information to an external entity นะครับ external entity or entity is the same thing นะครับ process can send and receive the information to external entity and from external entity. Yes, it's okay, it's correct. Next, a process can send or receive the data from or to data store นะครับ that is correct one นะครับ that is correct one. Wow, the next one นะครับ let's see the wrong one. External entity cannot send nor receive นะครับ cannot send nor receive the data นะครับ from or to another external entity directly นะครับ you cannot draw the symbol like this directly นะครับ entity and entity like this, it's wrong. Why is that? Because in order to send the information from the entity to another entity, you need to have a process to transform that data to be sent to another entity first. You cannot draw the line directly like this between these two entities. Another wrong one is that an entity cannot send nor receive the data directly to a data store. It needs to pass the process first as well. That's why this one is wrong. And last one, data store cannot send nor receive the data from or to another data store directly. You need to pass the process first in order to send or to receive the data to another data store. So these are just like the rules that we have to use basically in order to draw the data flow diagrams. On the next class, I will talk about the way in order to create a set of data flow diagrams, and then I'll just like talk about the date that we need to have the workshop. I think I will use the date to make up the class to become the workshop instead. And I recommend all of you to join the workshop because it is useful for you in the exam and also in your future as well. But I mean, like in the case that you really cannot join, I have the video clips that recorded for our workshop that you can just like watch later. Okay, right. Okay, then I'll stop my lecture at this point for the data flow diagram symbol and the basic rules of drawing the data flows. Okay, so up to this point, do you have any questions, anyone?